Good afternoon, viewers. Welcome to episode 14 of COVIDCAST Jamaica. This week, we are talking about the issue of when and how to close your business. It's been several weeks since the outbreak of the pandemic, COVID-19.
Pardon me, performance
and the effects of the pandemic have really affected several of our small and medium enterprises. And some persons are saying to themselves, is it time for me to wrap up this particular business and move on? So today we are joined by a very resourceful set of panelists. We have Andrea Livingston Prince, who is business management consultant. We have Shelly Leon, Deputy Chief Executive of the company's office. And we're also joined by the familiar face of Nevada Poe, lead architect of the PSOJ project. Just to inform you, we have been meeting with you every Thursday at 4 p.m. Come next week, we're moving our time. As the economy has opened up, more people have gone out to work, and we've heard your issues. You've said 4 o'clock isn't working for me, and you've asked us to move the time up. So we are moving the time. Air time is now 7:30 on a Thursday. So every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., we will meet with you again for COVIDCASTJA. Now I have a question for you. We have had 14, we are now at episode 14. Have you received the 14 memos? Because each episode has been supported by an SME memo. Have you received your memo? If you have not, email us at sme@psoj.org. sme@psoj.org for your weekly business tips. Business closings are a lot more common than we think. And in fact, there's an estimated 6,000 businesses that are started annually right here in Jamaica. Regrettably, the failure rate is about 50%. But one thing with Jamaicans, we are very innovative and we know the art of the bounce back. Approximately 2 in every 10 SMEs have been in operation for 1 to 2 years. 21% survive 3 to 5 years, and 18% remain open 6 to 8 years. When we look at the comparisons with the US, the recent statistics in the US on the small businesses show that 20% of small businesses fail in their first year, 30% in their second year, 50% fail after 5 years of business, and 70% of small business owners fail in their 10th year in business. Jamaican people, we are very resourceful and we love to open a business. Why? Because we're also very entrepreneurial. So today we're going to be talking about this very ticklish and sometimes an uncomfortable conversation to have. When and how do you close your business? Today, we're going to look at the factors to consider to determine, one, is the business currently failing? Is there any possible bounce back for this business? And if not, and there's a decision to close the business, how do you actually go about closing the business? Our first guest is Andrea Livingston Prince. She's a business management consultant. And Andrea has served over 10 governments throughout the Caribbean. She leads a collective of firms focused on designing management and monitoring projects and entities which deliver growth. She's an entrepreneurial trainer and a business case consultant. She's also a certified business advisor and is an approved business development organization lead under the DBJ Voucher for Technical Assistance Program. So Andrea is going to be of great value to us today. Andrea, how are you?
I am great, and I'm great to see you. You are, of course, inspirational and very encouraging, and I really am grateful for your influence and the PSOJ's movement for the SME and other business community.
Thank you so much, Andrea. And Andrea, thank you very much for your input. Andrea has provided so much meat and checklists for us to use this week. And again, if you have not subscribed to our weekly memo, this is one that is not to miss. It is certainly something that you can keep in your archives and constantly be reviewing as you're looking at the health of your business. Remember, you're going to email us at sme@psoj.org. Andrea, for persons who are hearing about your business management consultancy and business collective works, just as a starting point, can you tell us a little bit about what your business does and what do you focus on as a consultant?
Very good, thank you. We focus on best practices and promising practices. So we look around and we're a little jealous of the developed world. We want to know, how did you get there? And we know it's not by sheer money. It's not by sheer number of people. It's not by sheer technology. It's a collection of things, systems, best practices, identifying what works, identifying the commonalities among what works, and develop a trend and a system. So we look for those patterns in countries that, or in spaces that look like us, that look like ours, that are relevant to our culture and our geography, our partnerships, our general DNA and operations. And we say, hey, we do an assessment. Can it work here? How is it aligned to us and our community? And then we partner with them and we bring it here. So we use tools, even in our consultancies. Okay. We use proven tools from the OECD, the World Bank, IDB, USAID, proven tools to apply to us.
So when you're looking at pretty much a scan of not just the region, but also developed countries and bringing this kind of information and inserting it and applying it in our situation.
Yes.
So, yeah, continue, Andrea. You're saying something?
And to provide feedback, because we don't rubber stamp it, we say, this works for us, except XYZ.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the things that we have focused on in this project is also the concept of fit for purpose.
Yes.
What is that fit for purpose for us here in Jamaica? And when I was looking at the statistics of how, and what I like to say is how entrepreneurial we are in Jamaica, and we open businesses. Some of them that are opened are not captured in these statistics, but we do open businesses and we are very entrepreneurial as business people. We're very innovative and full of ideas. But as we open businesses and the ideas start to flourish and we set up a space, and then we are hit with the COVID pandemic. Yes. So when persons are doing their projections, if they do projections, when they were doing them in January, COVID was furthest from their minds. In fact, the economy was flourishing. We're looking at growth in the economy for some of us for the first time in our history. Now, when a business person, a small business person, is looking at their current scenario, and they may have had to actually close the doors of the business, or the business may now be open, but because of the customers aren't coming in, and persons are now saying to ourselves, our viewers are saying, tell me now, how do I assess whether or not my business is currently failing?
Yeah. Excellent. So we encourage businesses a lot to measure their break-even point. We say, know what's the smallest number of customers you need per week. What's the smallest number of sales you need per week? How do you do that with COVID? Mm-hmm. How do you do that? You still need to do that. But what do? You have to cut your expenses, right? So here you want to know, what are your telltale signs? Because definitely you're going to need your especially for those of us who deal with, who had balances for our main creditors before COVID. We have a problem. If we just went into the bank, this was the year had just started, you're going to tell your bank, listen, This is what I intend to do. And of course, you tell them positive things. But if the banks are now refusing to give you more finance, that's a telltale sign that you start to check if your business is dying. If you're receiving threatening letter from your creditors, you start to check. It means that you're unable to negotiate any further. Never stop trying to negotiate, but don't go negotiate with practical things. You have to come with key strategies. Own the situation, show them you know your numbers, show them you know your market, and tell them how you're going to pivot, how you're going to move to the next step, because there is a next step, right? If your directors or key partners are not taking salaries, they simply cannot take salary anymore. And for those of us who weren't taking salaries in any event, that was a problem, and it's going to show up even now, because now your family needs your income. We love you, honey, but we need your income. You have had to let staff members go. This is not temporarily, this is permanently. You have to let them go. So when can I come back to you? Can I say that I'm on vacation? No, I have to let you go.
Yeah.
And number 5 is the coup de grace. That's the one where the tax man is saying no more. Thankfully, we have a little grace in Jamaica, but you know, the government is still sending demand notices for old debts. But we are in it's a great time to be in Jamaica, where we have a tax department that's prepared to negotiate. Show that you will honor your commitment, and they typically will support you. If you know, I've heard of a few, two clients know we have, where they cannot find their tax documents. So we have to be rebuilding from their payments. So this is something that we need for us as business people, business owners, to take responsibility of some of this, and to understand that and accept we made a mistake by not being as diligent as we ought to in some instances. And let's see how we can move to the next step. Let's not sit and wallow. How do we get out of this?
Okay, so you've looked at and you've mentioned banks are refusing to give you additional financing. So there are relief programs that the banks have offered, and you're not able to avail yourself. You're receiving threatening letters from your creditors. That's a pretty big one. Each month, your cash flow is looking tight, negative. The directors are not taking salaries. You haven't been taking a salary, but you actually need the money. You need a salary, but there's no salary to pay. And you've had to let off, especially when you've had to let off key staff members, and the very important matter of your tax liabilities are mounting. So now is not the time to hide. Now is actually the time to start making some decisions. Now, Andrea, in terms of those decisions, so you've gone through this checklist, and you now have to consider, what do you actually consider at this time in making a decision whether you should in fact be closing the business?
Well, we like to say, we like to consider how much cash you have, how much debts, how much bills you have, and how much cash you have to stay open, and what are your alternatives. From as conservative to as ridiculous, what are your alternatives? When you, but all of those practical business related.
We may be having a bit of technical difficulty at this time. I know there was a power outage. So just to recap some of what Andrea has mentioned, Andrea has talked us through some of the decision making in closing your business. And you know, running a business is very challenging. And we were just going through some of the decisions that one has to make in determining when to close your business. Until Andrea comes back though, you know, we always have the familiar face of Nevada Paul. And I know he's in the background making some notes to come and discuss with us. So maybe we could just bring Nevada in at this time for some initial views on what Andrea has mentioned so far. Nevada. So while we get Nevada on screen, so there are many reasons sometimes why you may be required to close. Running a business is challenging, and you can't prepare for something like a COVID-19 pandemic. Business people often learn while doing. Andrea, are you back with us? So while we get Andrea back,
yes, I'm here.
Through some of the reasons why persons may also, you know, as they're thinking about closing, and one of the things that we are certainly pushing is that closing is not failure. Closing is not failure. And in fact, many very successful business persons have gone through businesses that have failed. They are learning experiences. So you have to seek quality help. And this is one of the things that we are providing at COVIDCast. You have to monitor your business constantly, especially at this time. And after all of that monitoring and management, sometimes things just fail just because of the times. And you have to know the telltale signs. So Andrea just went through the telltale signs, and she's actually going through with us now. Having gone through those telltale signs, how do you determine making that decision? What are the factors in saying, I really should close this business? So Andrea, you were saying you look now at all of the resources, those monetary resources, no matter how far flung they are. Can you go back through that for us, for those persons who?
Yes. Yes. So one, what do you have? What do you have in your kitty? Check everything, every account. And as the entrepreneur, how much do you have? What's the cash value on your insurance policies? Everything, list everything. That is a soul searching process. What's under the mattress? You do everything. Then you say the painful process for those of us who separate what the entrepreneur, the kind of credit that the entrepreneur got versus what the business got. Many of us cross that line. We have credit for goods or services that's for the entrepreneur but benefits the business. We have to list that too. There's no more division of the book. We have to list that too. This is our list. And it's great if you work it through with an accountant or a consultant. And it's especially fabulous if your auditor is in the room. However, or in the conversation. So you list everything you have, positive and negative. But here's what we consider at Business Works to be the formula. When you look in the mirror and you close your eyes, you're standing before the mirror and you close your eyes and you say, what am I looking at? Am I looking at a man or a woman that is ready to give another fight, to change strategies, to pivot, to change the field, the market, to change the business model, to change your staffing complement? Are you the person that wants to do that, or do you feel at peace with closing? Would you like to simply close? How do you feel? Because no matter what we say, no matter what we say about the company being a separate entity from the individual, it's your power, your superpower that's going to keep it going. So if you choose to close and hand over leadership to someone else and sell to someone else, that's fine. If you choose to stay open and hand the leadership to someone else under specific terms, we still have to decide on what our next is. We, as the entrepreneur, have to decide what's next. And unfortunately, no one can do that for us. So we like to talk about the personal entrepreneurship characteristics.
Okay.
So the German government did their shift from an industrial big business state into one that built their small business sector using a model called CEFE, a competency-based entrepreneurship training model. We are the accredited body at Business Works for the region.
Okay.
And we believe in it, we're proven it. Companies have done, entrepreneurs have done the training and have decided that entrepreneurship is not for me. So you need to understand how important it is. Now, let me tell you one of the things that we believe in. Yeah. We believe in PECs, personal entrepreneurship characteristics. And we are saying, walk yourself down journey lane, down that lane, and explore all the 10 characteristics. And then say to yourself, have I used them all? Then next, have I used them all well? And next, do I have more in my cup? Do I have more of these PECs to give, to use, to sharpen? Have I sharpened them and now ready to use them? Sorry, go ahead. You were saying, Rochelle?
Yeah, because Andrea, as you were just as you were going through a moment ago, I recognize that what you're encouraging is a very balanced approach to how the entrepreneur views the concept of closing. So on the one hand, there are some very significant choices that have to be made. And in terms of straight business, your cash flow, where else you're going to get some money from, all those business matters with your accountant. But then you also have to do that reflection of yourself as an entrepreneur and ask yourself, what else do I have in this tank? Not just in the tilly, but in the tank for my next venture. And you have also mentioned that there are certain skills that we amass as entrepreneurs. And as we're making the decision on the next steps and whether or not we are even able to pivot, if not now, but in the future, what are some of those skills that our business owners can leverage in moving forward?
Could you please repeat? I'm not hearing.
You're not hearing? Yes, I know there are some internet issues, but that is life. We are pivoting the same way. So Andrea, I was saying that as the business owners, we're just waiting for Andrea's instrument to settle down. So viewers, we're having there are some power outages and they are affecting the internet connections, but we prod on. Is Nevada available? Is Nevada backstage? Because in the meantime, we could have some conversation with Nevada. I am seeing a question here from Javar. Javar says, I wonder how much businesses have been run into the ground due to COVID. We need to figure out a way to turn this negative into a positive or cut our losses. And Nevada, today is a day that we are talking about cutting our losses, the packing up of a particular business and the moving on. What are some of the major considerations? Because you always come and kind of lay it down straight for the what are some of the things that are running through your head now, and even based on what Andrea has said?
Yes, for sure. It's definitely a difficult time, no question. But as every week we go on, and you and I talked about this early on, right? The realization and the reality of the situation is becoming more to the fore. Because what is happening is the uncertainty. And not only for us, all over the world, right? Economies are opening and they're closing. Borders are opening and they're closing. So we are going to be moving forward in an uncertain environment. And that is quite nerve-wracking for some. So what you have to do, again, you have to take your emotional side out of it, even though that's difficult, and ask yourself a series of questions. So about the things to do about closing your business. I have a graphic that I just wanted to share to give a sense. How am I doing, by the way, internet-wise? Can you hear me?
You're doing very well, and seeing and hearing you very well.
Excellent, excellent. All right, JPS, hold on. Bring up the graphic for me. All right, great. All right. The first thing is time, right? Where will you realistically be in 6 to 12 months? Not the prayer, not the thing you're telling your girlfriend or boyfriend, but when you look at the situation where you're going to be in 6 to 12 months. The second issue, again, as we've talked about many times here, if have you done all the adjustments of your working capital? You lowered your costs, lowered your labor costs, lowered all your ancillary expenses. You collected your receivables. You sold what inventory you could, converted it into cash, and you got moratoriums on your rent and your bank. Now look at the financing that you have, which Andrea spoke to, right? Can you fund the interim period inexpensively? And I say inexpensively because in the desperation, what we do, we move for expensive credit. Be wary of credit card debt to finance the daily operations of your business. That is not a good way to be financing your business. So if you can't finance it inexpensively, either from savings or from a good inexpensive working capital loan from your bank, this could be a situation where you're in trouble. Look at your cash flow. Is it steadying or still erratic, up and down, with no predictability? That's also a big consideration that you should be concerned about. What's going on in your industry broadly? Are there other companies in your sector making money? Why do you think you'll be one of the winners? An honest assessment about yourself for that, right? So if somebody's still making money in your sector, it means it's still possible. However, if nobody's making money, you also need to check yourself. And again, if somebody's making money, you may also not be the one to be making money. So you also have to assess where you are relative to the ones making money. Are those 5 to start clear, Rochelle?
They are clear. Nevada, you mentioned the whole concept of credit card debt. Could you, because I know a lot of people, you just step on the big toe a while ago. So persons know that they have been using their credit card to get now from week to week. Can you just expound on that a little bit?
Okay, so credit card debt basically, apart from other situations, is probably the most expensive debt or one of the most expensive financing facilities that are out there. If your day-to-day operations of your business are being financed by this very expensive way of financing, remember, you have to cover your margins. So what you are saying is, this is how much it costs me to run the business. I'm putting up this very expensive financing vehicle on top of my margin, and then hoping that my pricing is going to cover that, which it rarely does. So you have to be careful because you're not making the full connection. And in the desperation, you just keep putting stuff on the credit card and hoping that it'll all pay off. Because here's the other thing that's happening. When you are putting stuff on your credit card, day-to-day expenses on your credit card, it means you're also increasing your credit card bill over time. So the financing on the financing is going to impact you 3 months, 4 months from now. And what have you done? You've tried to preserve something that cannot afford that type of financing on the business. So
when
you have moved to your credit card as your financing vehicle, is that what you're using to pay people, using it to get cash, pay workers? You're in a serious trouble situation. That's time to pause.
Yeah.
So other questions.
Before we move on, I think there's a question here that ties into what you have been discussing. Yeah. What happens if you're in the tourist trade and don't have sustainability and will have to close operations? How do you deal with closure as it comes to employees' redundancy if there is no cash flow? So we're going to deal with redundancy a little later on, but you mentioned working capital and cash flow. Can you just give a little more discussion on those two areas?
Okay, so working capital or cash flow means that how do you have enough money to finance your business? So what working capital is the capital, the money that makes your business work. So do you have money to pay your workers? Do you have money to pay your rent? You have money to buy, he talks about the tourist industry. You have money to buy food for any hotel guests and so on, what you have. That money that is required for your business is what we call the working capital of your business. Now, typically, obviously, if you have customers and sales, the cash coming in would obviously finance that working capital. The cash that guests pay to stay at your hotel is what you would use to finance your business. And presumably over time, your cash coming in exceeds your cash going out, and therefore you have a profitable business. So
Yes.
that's really the issue. Working capital is the capital that you're using in the business to work for you. That's really the way to think about it. And you want to be in a situation where you have positive working capital as soon as you can, which is that the money coming in is more than the money going out. If you're in a negative working capital situation, the money going out is more than the money coming in. You end up having to borrow for that. Now, if you borrow for that with credit card, that's not a good way to borrow for that kind of funding. The hope is that you'll be able to go to your bank, especially if you're a hotel where you've been in business for a long time and your bank knows you well. They would be able to give you either moratorium or cheaper financing, way less financing than you have with your credit card. So that is also about looking at what additional debt you will take on in your situation. Just go back to the graphic for a second. This whole issue of additional debt becomes crucial. No, the second one, sorry. Right, so the whole issue of additional debt, you have to pick a number now. How much debt are you willing to take on and lock into it and stick to it? So you see things are not going well. You say, all right, let me take some debt on to finance my situation. Pick a number. Whatever that number is, when you almost approach that number, you realize it's time to stop, because that is what you're going to get your personal life, your personal thing into trouble. So how much more debt? Stick to it. Check for other opportunities. We've talked a lot on this program about pivoting. Is there a pivot if your continued situation is grim? And can you afford to pivot? Do you have the financing to be able to pivot your business? And how long do you expect it to take for your pivoted business, if you do find one, to be able to take off? That's also a calculation that you'll do in this situation, whether or not there's opportunities. There's the issue of emotional stress and health issues. Are you overeating? Are you not sleeping? Are you undereating? Are you yelling at everybody? Are you just irritated and angry? You're also recognizing that those are the stressors of the business. A few weeks ago, we did a program on stressors, and this, of course, is a critical part of the of how you know when it may be time to close. What's the workplace environment? Has it become toxic? Are your key people leaving? Often they will see what you are not willing to see. So some of your key people who are the smartest, capable, and also been with you for a while, when they're starting to open the door, the situation maybe not good. Write down the pros and cons of staying open in a dispassionate way. Why would you do this? What are the benefits? What are you losing? What's it costing you? And then assess dispassionately, even church a trusted friend or advisor, as to where do you go forward. But the biggest thing, and the last slide that I want to go to, is really to say this. Paint a picture. Where do you expect to be? What date are we now? We're in June 25th, right? Where do you expect to be in 6 months? Where do you expect to be by the end of the year in terms of the business? What's the revenue? What's the cost? How many people are you employing? Once you have that picture in your head, then what I want you to do is to write it down in your diary or whatever it is about this is what I expect to be at the end of the year. In 3 months, July, August, September. So you don't have to wait the 6 months. In 3 months, write down where you are and then assess then, are you truly on your way to what you said you were in 6 months? So you don't have to wait for the 6 months. So if I say, for example, I'm going to have 100 guests by December, and in September, I have 3 guests, right? That is not on a projection to come to 100 guests by December, right? So you have to sort of assess your situation in 3 months relative to where you need to be in 6 months. And if you are not anywhere near that bar, on your way to that bar, pause, stop, a closing may be in order.
Okay. So Nevada, I have this question for you. You mentioned that 3 to 6 month review. Suppose you are here now on July 25th. You have a brick and mortar structure. You have received a moratorium on your rent, and you know that you will not be able to pay any rent anytime soon. So when you look, you recognize that you have laid off your employees.
Yes.
The business that you have, you're looking at a working capital situation where you have been using your credit card. You have now amassed a debt on your credit card. You try to get some money from the bank. You are unable to get any money from the bank. You've lost or are about to lose some of your key employees. So you are now at July 25, and this is what you're facing. What do you do?
Yes. Well, first of all, the truth is, what is your, Andrea talked about what is your true break-even point? So what is it that sales that you need to get back to even do a base covering of your business? And what is your route there? No, you are already strapped for cash because if you're already using the credit card. So in that situation, before you even move further, the first thing to ask yourself is, given what your break-even is, do you see any route there? If you don't see any route there, you have to close. You have to start wrapping up. If you see a route there, but you don't necessarily have the financing, you may consider, but again, even that will be difficult, trying to find what we call what is equity financing, right? You try to find friends and family or some financier who's willing to actually take a share of your business. You may have to give up a significant amount of your business, but to take a share of your business. But the good thing about equity is that equity isn't demanding on an immediate repayment. The thing with the loans, while you don't give up as much ownership because you have a loan, the loan requires repayment, irrespective of what's going on in the business. Equity tends to be more patient. In fact, if you are financing a business now, starting a business now, you are far better off trying to get equity because of the what we call the juggle economy, open, close, open borders, closed borders, right? You're far better off trying to get equity that and patient equity that's going to try and will understand that it's going to take you a while to get through it. So if you are already in credit card and you can't see your way to break even, getting enough sales to break even to your cost, time to lock up shop. However, if you see your way, but you just can't fund it, try to go to your bank if you can and renegotiate your credit card rate down to another loan. Try and do something else, or try and find an equity partner that can hold you until the period, and then you work your way back to it. By the way, the most attractive thing in this current environment, both for the banks and for the equity players, is going to be the individual more than the situation. And what I mean by that is this. What I mean by that is this. Anyone who has hustled, cut their costs, been extremely innovative and creative in how they've tried to get out of a situation, that is the horse that's being bet on. Because situations now are less certain than individuals. Yes, the airports are open, but we don't know for how long, right? That's a situation. So if you're banking on a permanent opening of the economy, a permanent opening of the airport, that's harder to bet on. But what you can bank on, if somebody who, when COVID hit, they cut their costs, they negotiated their bank rate, they negotiated moratoriums down with their landlord. That was versus the person who sort of stood there and said, Lord, poor me. Because poor me is not going to get you out of a situation. So be aware and alert that being a person who can hustle your way, navigate your way, proactively seek solutions is what will put you in better stead. That being said, when it is time to close, it is simply time to close. And I know you have a guest coming on soon to talk about exactly what the procedure is vis-a-vis company office and tax office.
Yes,
but
to talk about the actual.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we do have, because this segues very nicely into our next guest, and Nevada has taken us through a checklist of items that one really needs to consider in determining when to close. And a very interesting point that people will actually bank on the individual, and an individual who has shown the initiative to actually keep that business alive. And you see, when you did have a good idea in the first place, it may not have been working well under your management, but somebody else can jump in and assist you, and you have to be open to that. Because sometimes half of that pie is better than the entire pie having to be closed at the company's office of Jamaica. And in fact, now we are joined by the Deputy Chief Executive Officer and Director of Operations from the company's office, Shelly Leon. Shelly is an attorney at law, admitted to the Jamaican bar and to the California bar. She holds a Master of Laws in Business and Commercial Law and has translated this into a very strong commitment to the law with the molding of young legal minds at the Normal Manley Law School from all the way in 2004, even though she looked like she just born. She's a member of the Jamaica Bar Association and a member of the Board of Trustees of the Executive Agency's pension scheme. So, hi, Shelly, how are you?
I am good, thank you, Rochelle.
I know you've been very busy at the company's office, and in fact, the company's office, because I just want to go through, because the company's office has really gone through quite a bit of transformation over the years, and you have really been at the helm and very involved in many of these transformations. Can you tell us a little bit about the online portal and how businesses are able to use it? I actually used it recently in the formation of a company, and it worked so well. Can you just tell our viewers a little bit about that before we get into the process for closing?
Okay, yes, I will. Thank you, Rochelle. So as you indicated, the COJ, we have gone through a lot of transformation over the past several years. And we want to also indicate that this online filing portal, it's a work in progress. So it's a portal through which we're making continuous improvement. So if a customer wants to start a business or incorporate a company, they do not have to physically come to the company's office of Jamaica. In fact, to date, we've had over 2,000 businesses and just under 50 companies who have gone online and registered their businesses and companies respectively. So the customer would go to our website at www.orcjamaica.com. You would sign in if you already have an account. If you don't have an account, then you would sign up and thereby become a subscriber.
There you go.
Now, in order to register your company, to incorporate your company or register your business, you need to have an approved or reserved name. So you could have done the you would have needed to do the reservation of the name prior to the registration process.
Registration.
So, right. So once you have signed in, you select the name that you would have already reserved, and you would go ahead. If it's a business that you are registering, you would fill out the relevant data. If it's a company, you would fill out the relevant data. You would upload your identification, and in the case of the business, your proof of address, and the document would be signed electronically. You make your payment, and then you would indicate if you want to come in to pick up the certificate either at 1 Grenada Way or at Delisa Avenue in Montego Bay, or more convenient than that, you could actually indicate that you want to access courier service, and then you would pay for them, right? And the courier would just deliver the document to you. And I just want to quickly say that using this online system, it's very beneficial because you get a faster turnaround time and you have a much higher likelihood of your application proceeding successfully to registration. So we have very good feedback in regard to the processing timelines and that sort of thing.
And Shelly, because this is actually great news, because over the years, this has been something that your customers have been asking for. And I know the flip side of it is what some people have considered the horror in closing a business.
Yes.
Ravi Daswani just acknowledging, and Javar, there were questions that were asked about closure of business when it applies to, when does redundancy apply? And Javar asked about bankruptcy. We're going to deal with Shelly in regard to the actual process at the company's office, and then I will address those two questions. So just acknowledging those questions. So Shelly, some of the people saying, "Whoa, Miss Leon, opening a business sound like it can be a little a easier process." And I know in some ratings, Jamaica has rated well in the actual process for opening. But tell me about closing now, and you would be getting more persons who are at the very least inquiring about closing. What is the procedure at this time for closing?
All right. So we'll start first with the business name. So the procedures of
Shirley, for those who don't know, just to clarify, so what is considered on one side is where you register business name. So like Rochelle Cameron trading at Big Ed down the road. Okay. So that's where you say that trading as. And then you have a company which would now have directors and shareholders, and it would have limited. So Rochelle Cameron Limited. So just for viewers that they know the difference between the two types.
Okay, so yes, that's quite correct. And the company, it's a separate legal person from the persons who form it. And as you said appropriately, the business name is simply Rochelle Cameron Trading as X. All right, so we start with the process for closing a business. So similar to how it is easier to start a business, it's also easier to close the business. So at this time, if you want to close a business, all that is required is that a business is obliged to renew every 3 years. There are some persons who may not have done any renewal in quite some time, but they now wish to close. So normally they would have had to renew their businesses to date and then complete a form BN6 and pay a closure fee plus late fees for each renewal period. However, during this time, so up to the 31st of August, what a business will be allowed to do, if you have 2 or more periods of renewal outstanding, you will only renew for 1 period and you will only pay 1 late fee. So there will be a standard fee of $4,100 to close your business. So what you will do, you will complete the form BN6. You will complete 1 period of renewal and pay 1 late fee, and that will take care of closing your business. Now, in regard to the company, the limited company, there is a simple process for closure or removal if you have no assets or liabilities. In this case, prior to this COVID relief that we're doing, a company would have had to bring the files up to date, get an auditor's certificate, and submit a removal letter. What we're now...
That's the process I know.
Yes, so that's the process you know. But we have some relief for persons at this time.
Okay.
So we're now saying we're not going to force you to update the record. All that you will do is file a statutory declaration, and we have a standard form for that. A removal letter and simply pay a flat fee of $7,500.
Okay.
And that's it. And then we will simply go through the process that we're required to go through in accordance with the Companies Act. And by the end of the financial year, that company will be struck off. Persons, of course, should remember that whilst doing this process at the company's office, they should also notify other agencies that they have closed and that they have requested removal from the register of companies.
Okay. And so Shelly, I think one of the things is that persons are of the view that when they go through this process at the company's office, they have removed all of their liabilities. So the company has been closed and they just kind of pack up now and walk away. But in regard to their outstanding debts and the process of dealing with their creditors, that would be a different process than this company's office closure.
All right, so I want to indicate and just clarify. So here at the company's office, in regard to companies, there we have two distinct processes that can bring the life of the company to an end. If the company has either assets or liabilities, but they are solvent, then they may go through members voluntary winding up. And that's another process. That's a process where you'll have to pass a special resolution and you will have to appoint a trustee. The trustee will publish notice of appointment. The trustee will gather in debts. The trustee will rather gather in assets, pay out debts. When the trustee has finished doing that, they will make certain returns and reports to the registrar, and the registrar will strike the company off. That's the process that obtains where there are assets or liabilities. However, the process that I previously described, that's the process that obtains if you don't have assets or liabilities and you want to remove the company. So what some persons do, some persons transfer the liabilities either to other entities or to themselves personally, and they also transfer the assets, and then they utilize that other process, that the easier process. But if they have not done that, then they have to wind up, do a members voluntary winding.
And one of the liabilities that is considered are outstanding, say, redundancy payments or so to employees. That's one of the liabilities that the company's office looks at in that members voluntary winding up.
Well, the trustee would have done reports to show what they have collected in what are the various obligations, etc. So the trustee would report to the registrar on that, on any liability, whether tax liability. So what is required, because for company's office, we only deal with solvent winding up. If the company is not solvent, then that is going to be done under the Insolvency Act. Well, right. Yeah. So that would be outside of the company.
So Shelly, before we go on, because sometimes when we are taught the language here and we are say solvent and one of solvent.
Okay.
Let's just clarify what is so Shelly Leon has gone through with us the closure of a business, the closure of a business that has no assets and no liabilities. And the closure of a business and the closure of a business of a company with no assets or liabilities, there is in fact a simplified procedure that's now available through the company's office. In regard to a company that is winding up, but is a solvent company. Solvent meaning what again, Shelly?
All right, so let me tell you. So according to the Companies Act, right, the directors, they are going to swear, they are going to make this declaration that based upon their financials, their audit, they will in the next 12 months be able to satisfy their liabilities. So, right. So if you're talking about a solvent winding up, you are saying that I have sufficient assets that I can liquidate, that I will be able to pay my liabilities over a 12-month period. So that's how it starts out. Sometimes it extends beyond 12 months. And there's a procedure if that happens.
And if it is that you are in fact at this stage insolvent, and clarify for our viewers what insolvency is defined, how you define insolvency.
All right, so I'm going to
the company's law.
All right, so that falls under the Insolvency Act, and there are various parameters set out there for when, for example, a company would be deemed to be insolvent. So, for example, if someone received a judgment debt over $300,000 and the company was unable to satisfy that after having been served, then that company would be deemed to be insolvent.
And the procedure, so that our viewers are aware, where the company is in a position that it is in fact insolvent, which is basically it is unable to meet its liabilities, its outstanding debts over the next 12-month period. That would now be a situation where the company would be proceeding under the Insolvency Act. This is what we talk about when we talk about things like bankruptcy. And
right.
For our viewers who are wondering, so where you have employees, for instance, and a redundancy would apply, the monies for the redundancy would form part of the liability of the company. So what you're saying in an insolvency situation is, me don't have it, me cannot pay it, and it goes through a particular court procedure. Shelly?
Well, the insolvency process, it's quite intricate, and there are various, since the law since this new law was passed, there are various things that can take place. So for example, many people will know about the US system where, because a company goes into bankruptcy, doesn't necessarily mean it has to die. There is the opportunity to renegotiate your debts, and the company can actually come back to life. So we actually have an insolvency law in Jamaica which deals with that. No, it's not the company's office, of course, that
deals with that.
Right, that deals with that. But yes, there are various options that can be pursued under the insolvency law.
Yes. So Shelly, thank you for that, because at this time we're going to bring back Nevada and Andrea. We have looked at the various considerations and factors that one would have to go through in determining, am I at a stage where I need to close my business? And even in making that decision, what are the parameters in making that decision? Nevada also put on the table, like, you may not have the money to proceed, but you're in a position that you have a good business, you have a good hustle too, that you may find someone who is willing to make an equity investment. There's a question that has come up in regard to redundancy and employees, where the roles of a business. So if you have a business and the business is closing, it means that the certain positions that you would have had in the business, they no longer exist. So what triggers now is a redundancy. Now, where you are unable to meet your debt, the employee obligations, those liabilities that you have for your employees, form part of the liability that is considered. So now it is a question of, is there any other way? Am I in a position where I am able to make any kind of negotiations with other creditors which allow me to even pay things like my employee liabilities over a period of time? Or am I in a truly pure insolvency where there is nothing at all? So for insolvency, you're going to look at things like, what are the assets of the business? Is there a building that the business has that can be sold? So there are various parameters of things that will be considered. One of the things too, though, is that the employee redundancy may not have to be paid right away, but the liability does not go away. We will, and Nevada, I think we're going to have to deal with that matter in a further show, because we talked earlier about layoffs and redundancy in the COVID pandemic. No, technically that kind of 120-day layoff period that persons would have applied is coming to an end. What happens now? So we're going to have to do a show on the what happens now. So Nevada, you've heard Shelly talk about insolvency and the process with the company's office. Andrea, you are a business consultant, so you know you have to be telling your clients how this thing actually applies. So before you get to having to go to the company's office, and it's important to know that for the company, if you have assets and liabilities, the simplified procedure will not apply to you. You will actually have to go through the usual procedure, which involves application of a trustee, etc. Now,
one of the things. Sorry. No, I was just saying one of the things which Shelly spoke about, right? So if you're looking at a situation where your liabilities in fact do exceed your assets, one of the first things you're going to do is to try and do what I call a negotiated mitigation of your liabilities. So say you have mitigation of the liabilities, right? So if you have $100 worth of assets, whether it's cash or building that you'll sell or whatever it is, but you owe $150, right? So you know the overall situation is negative. What you do is you talk to each of those people that you owe, and you basically say to them, and you have to decide where, in what, and who can take how much less, and all of that, and basically say, I have $100, I owe $150 to 20 different people. So what I'm going to propose is I give you, Rochelle Cameron, $20, even though I owe you $40. Is that acceptable to you? The reason it's better for everybody for you to do it this way than do it the litigation way is that because the moment there's legal fees and everything on top of this, everybody, the pie is going to get even less. So you're going to try first and see if all of your liabilities will accept less based on your description of their position. Now, the key thing is to make sure that when I offer you $20 for the $40, I get a confirmed letter from you that my obligation has been dispersed. So you say, Nevada Power owed me $40 for whatever reason. Because of the transition in the business, I have accepted $20 on my $40, and there it is closed. So you start to you're wrapping up your files in a way that's sensible, rather than waiting for people to start suing
after you.
Yes.
And it's always very interesting when you have lawyers and business people on any kind of program together, because there are always the legal steps that one follows. And in fact, what Nevada is suggesting is not an illegal step, it is a mitigation procedure. So you are looking at $100 worth of liabilities. Is there a way for me to negotiate with my creditors, negotiate $60 worth of liability, because it's $60 I have? And in these times, it's not far-flung at all, because those creditors are looking for something. They don't want to go to court. They don't want to be in any insolvency procedure with you. They want to get something in. But so it's good for us to know the various mechanisms that we can use before we even have to think of getting into a state of insolvency. And I see Shelly nodding. Shelly don't want to see you go into insolvency. Andrea,
yes,
as you are hearing this discussion, I know earlier you were touching on the point of the skills that an entrepreneur actually acquires over time. And we have been talking on this show about pivoting. So as persons are looking at the next step, what are some of those key skills that entrepreneurs actually acquire over time that will help them in their next steps?
Thank you, Rochelle and Shelly. And I'm gonna ride on Shelly and Nevada's coattail. So you see, with all of their great tips and excellent solutions, let me tell you, if the mindset is not right, you are afraid. You are so afraid that you cannot get out of bed. So we are saying, dear entrepreneur, check your head, get it right. Get it right, get it to yourself, understand that your business is struggling. You hear the definitions. The business term for a struggling business can be insolvency, meaning that the dirty tough, water is tight. It's not the first and it won't be the last. Can you manage? Then it goes to bankruptcy. The law says you can lean on it, but what about your head? You have to have the right head to go before, to negotiate, as Nevada says. When you go into Shelly's office and you look like you're floundering, you don't know what you want. What do you want, sir or ma'am? What do you want? What do you want? Are you prepared to take a decision? And we believe that we can do hard things. We can cry, negotiate, put ourselves together, cry again, negotiate again, and still come out well. The pecs that I was talking about, Rochelle and listeners, is something, our competencies that we should have had before we started the business, sadly. But many of us are entrepreneurs of necessity. Some of us have an opportunity. We're in two big categories, we see an opportunity, we find out we're good at it, and we say, you know what, I can do this, and we run. However, there are some steps we should have followed, which is to check some boxes of some personal entrepreneurial characteristics. So the Business Works family is saying that at this juncture, while you're checking your head to see if you can you're worthy to go before people credibly, let's see how you score. You're not telling anybody, you're telling yourself and your own network. By now, everybody would have known one fundamental rule of life. You need to know your value. All of us need to know our value, because if we don't, everything else will have it. A little rain will come and it will have it. And this is a stormy season. This is hurricane season. So we're going to have to know our worth. So let's go through the picks. If I can do so quickly, I know that time is limited. Thank you for your patience. So let me tell you now that number one, you have to have self-confidence, because, and it's not me who's saying it. It's not Sefa, it's who's saying it. It's what many entrepreneurs have said over time, successful entrepreneurs, that you have to know yourself. You also have to know what your contribution is to your marketplace. So you're asking people to support your business because it's a good business, because it's a good product, because it's a good idea and good people doing it, right? Okay, next in line, we want to talk about what we're going to talk about: systematic planning and monitoring. Now, not many of us are systematic. We like to do things ad hoc because we're creative and so on. Well, you need to develop that. We have to sharpen it, and we should have done it before. So let's see how we score now, because time will sharpen that. And I'm sure many of us, we didn't start with those skills, but as we learned, as we grew our business, we got systematic. We developed a methodology, and we started tracking things. We started being curious about our business. Life has a way of teaching us. It's the biggest classroom. Information seeking. I have a pet peeve about that. You have some people that come to you and they're asking you things. You're supposed to hand it to them. Knowledge is a commodity. I love you. Don't you just love the web? You can go and you can spend all night in school on the web, learning, teaching yourselves, comparing different perspectives, educating yourself. And the next thing is something that a lot of us introverts have issues with: persuasion and networking. We think networking is going out there and so on and so forth. Networking and being at the cocktail parties and spending your company's money. It's not necessarily that. It can be that, but as well, it is knowing where is your tribe. Know your tribe, where your potential markets, potential ideas, potential technique and technology in your field. How do you get stronger? And how can I persuade you using facts, personality, authenticity, and realistic alignment between our product, our business model, and you, the buyer, or the supplier, or the prospective supporter. And there's commitment to work contract.
Actually, I really like the direction. I really like the direction that you're going, because one of the things for this particular show that you were always uncomfortable talking about things like a business failing, about closure. Yes. But what we're also saying is that you also have an opportunity for the next steps and the
Yes.
learnings from this particular venture. And in
Yes.
fact, that goes to a question, because Nevada, I know we're going to be dealing with this matter soon. After you go find the self-confidence, you are looking to see what pivot you can make, what next steps you can make. You did go on the web in the night and you look at some new methodology. Nevada, if you want to say go to the bank, is it harder when you go to the bank on the second venture? So I'm actually, as we're wrapping up, I'm asking Nevada this question first from the banking section. When you go to the bank to say, all right, we did have one business we failed and I was banking with you. Want to help me again? And Shelly, when I come back to you at the company's office to register my new business, are you going to look down on me? So let me start with Nevada.
Okay. All right. Honestly, I think
Nevada,
this time,
with the bank, is it more difficult?
Okay. Honestly, I think this time is different than it would have been before. Especially because it was circumstances that are completely outside your control. Again, earlier in the show, earlier shows, Rachel, we talk about the idea of a story. I have a hotel and I have a certain amount of financing. The airports have largely been closed. And even when the airports come in, the people are coming in at a drip, drip, drip. I was not able to make it, Mr. Banker. You explain how your particular business story fits in with the larger global narrative of COVID shutdown. No, again, if I hustled, I tried my best to pay the bill. When I tell my story of everything that I tried to do, and the banker hears that, what I have done is said, no, this person is solid from a character, business personality, and this has been what you call overwhelming conditions. In fact, it can be part of the reason why the bank might lend you money again, because of how you handled yourself in this period. So if things were going bad, I hide from the bank. I'm looking at the phone and all that kind of thing, and then I'm ready to go back. Okay, you know what? I've also shown my cards. The banker is not going to be open and willing and say, so where were you when I was trying to call you every week about our money? So again, it's really about how upfront and clear you have been. There isn't anybody, unless you're under some rock, that don't know that COVID is going on, that don't know that a whole bunch of businesses are going to go under. So it is now part of the environment and therefore an accepted part of the narrative. Lots and lots of businesses are going to struggle at this time, and the banks are aware of it, and the company's office is aware of it, you know?
Is the company's office aware of it, Shelly?
Well, certainly
when I close my current business and I come back to you.
All right, so from the company's office perspective, as Nevada said, and basically what Andrea said, what you need to do, you need to act. You can't just do nothing. So one, you're either going to make a decision that I'm going to see this through, I'm going to remain in business, and in that case, you talk to the company's office, and we have document submission plans. We'll work with you. But if you do decide that you are going to go out of business, that's why we have this relief program for you, to make it easier for you and to significantly reduce the cost. So the important thing for you is to take action. You cannot simply shut the door to your business. The same way you started it formally is the same way you must close formally. If you're not going to close, just talk to us. We're here. As Nevada said, we know about COVID. We want to help you. We want your business to succeed.
Yeah. So viewers, as you have been hearing from our panelists, now is not the time to hide. Utilize the relief programs that are available. Where you are able, you may not have kept up with your company's office filings, but you have an opportunity now that you may want to close the business that you've been involved in and move on to the next and do it better the next time. You have to assess the business that you were in. How was that business operating? You have some real paperwork to do. Do I have correct working? Do I have working capital? Am I using my credit card to pay the debts? Have I been able to pay myself? Will I be able to pay anybody? There are some serious questions to ask. And at the end of the day, as Andrea has reinforced, your mindset, your mindset, your mindset. You can crawl into a corner and hide from your creditors and hide from the tax man, but know that your mindset may want to hide, but physically you cannot hide. They will find you. So now is the time. It's not the time to hide. Now is the time to come forward and put your business in order. And putting your business in order may include closing the business at this time. Wow. What an energetic discussion, and funny enough, an energetic discussion in a topic that is a difficult topic for us to actually go through a discussion. You never had a, I mean, closing your business.
Closing the business.
Very difficult.
Rochelle, have a
but
quick
sometimes, and you have said it from. Sure.
Yes. So I just wanted to go quickly again, just again.
You want to go ahead?
We like lists. We like lists to just a quick wrap up. So Raheem, just give me the closing your business checklist, right? Collect your outstanding receivables, sell off your inventory, notify your creditors, notify your customers, terminate your leases, notify employees and pay your redundancy or negotiate, liquidate your assets, settle debts in the context of a closed down event. So go in with each of your debtors with your best offer, because nobody really wants to go through the thing. Distribute the remaining assets to yourself and other owners. Explain the logic of this distribution. Close out your accounts. Cancel your licenses in the company name. Leave a message on your phone, on your thing about where you can be found, as there are always open issues for about a year that may linger, and dissolve your company or sole proprietorship. Go through the company's office procedure. Again, all of this that we talked about today is available in the email at sme@psoj.org. Do not try and do this alone. We have laid out the steps for you. We have made it clear. Make sure you are on our email list so that you are keeping on top of things. Really, really awesome, Rochelle. An important but rough topic, but as it's going to be part of the ongoing environment. So we know this.
Just to close off, Ravi Daswan is saying we did not reply if redundancy applies to closure of business. Redundancy does apply to closure of business because it still becomes a liability. So I had addressed that earlier. It's still one of the liabilities to consider. And if we go back to the checklist, just to go back to Nevada's checklist, and again, this is available on our SME memo. The notify your employees and payment of redundancy is part of the whole consideration in closure of the business. So in fact, it does apply. And we will be having a further show to talk about what happens now when the redundancy is potentially really hitting after the layoff period. Wow, Nevada, what are your final words to our business owners today?
Hang tough. Remember, the failure of a business is not the failure of a person. And please recognize that circumstances can change and you can be caught in a tidal wave, not of your own making. And with all of the planning in the world, you may have missed this one. But understand, if you were a good business before COVID, if you had developed a profitable business before COVID, if you had been in business for a number of years before COVID, then you are the kind of person who will be in business again. It may not be the business you originally had, but you are a business person. So please recognize that and hold on to that and just start thinking about your next dream. Rochelle, we're moving in our time zone. No longer at 4 next week.
We sure are. So
Yes.
next week you're going to join us at 7:30. We know persons are back at work, and by 7:30 you will have been in a position where you're able to tune in and take your notes. So next week, join us at 7:30 p.m. right here again for another episode of COVIDCASTJA. And I see a note here, Kenya says, good final note, Nevada. And just to repeat what Nevada said, the closure of your business, the failure of your business is not your failure. You are not a failure. So thank you again for joining us. And what time are they joining us next week, Nevada? Let me see if you were listening. What time next week?
7:30. COVIDCASTJA.
7:30 next week. And again, if you have not yet signed up for our weekly memo, it's sme@psoj.org. So we're looking forward to another exciting episode of discussions and business tips where we share, you ask your questions. Please send in your questions, continue to send in your questions, share the video, and we are looking forward to your feedback and commentary on another episode of COVIDcast JA.